Hi, I'm Christina, and welcome to this episode of Women's Health, Wealth, and Happiness Interviews to Inspire. I'm excited to introduce our next guest, a master teacher of the body, mind, spirit connection, and the founder of the Living Upward movement. For her, health means balance, knowing that thriving begins when we're no longer in survival mode and being aligned physically, mentally, and spiritually. Wealth is found in the greater good, where giving and receiving become part of a shared, abundant ecosystem. Wisdom she learned through both nature and her time as a fine art photographer. And happiness comes from self-love, gently reconnecting with the truest parts of ourselves with kindness and care. Please join me in welcoming our next guest, author and founder of the Living Upward movement, Susan.
Happy to be here. That's a great introduction. I am currently living in Massachusetts. I have traveled around, spent a lot of time in Philadelphia area and then in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where kind of had an era of deep exploration and excitement in connecting with the natural world and the spiritual world and kind of taking my helping profession into a very new direction. Then transplanted back here to the Northeast in New England. My background is for 50 years, really truly 50 years, I have been in the mode of helping others to find inner peace, to find balance, to become empowered, and to find a new connection to life, new ways. And initially, I did that through a psychology practice and then a consulting practice in the corporate and nonprofit worlds. And then I gave it all up and became a fine art photographer, which I kind of didn't know was going to happen. Kind of there it was, this opportunity, and I grabbed it. And then from there, that actually is partly what took me to New Mexico, my husband and I to New Mexico. And there I studied the ancient healing arts and primarily the shamanic world and became a shamanic practitioner. And then I added contemporary energy medicine to that and became a craniosacral therapist and created a very unique form of helping that brought together understanding of what the psychological process is with the energetic process and the neurological process in the body and offered soul medicine, body wisdom to my clients. And from there, I started writing a book. And from there, I founded the Living Upward movement. And then I wrote another book about how we can all participate in that process in very simple, practical, meaningful ways. So, and here I am.
Susan, your health word is balance. Tell us what balance means to you.
This is really interesting because it means something a little different than most people talk about. And I'll get to that in a minute. When we feel in balance, then our bodies are in balance, our spirits in balance, our emotions are in balance, and that this leads to greater health. This is where health is, because this is where we all started out as these balanced little creatures who arrived here on planet Earth. And we've been thrown off course for lots of reasons. And right now we live in incredibly stressful times. So stress is kind of puts us in this place of efforting all the time. And we've lost sight of ease in our lives, many of us. So if we could bring effort and ease more into balance, we would find greater health. We would find that greater health mentally in the things that we think about, the optimism we feel. We would experience it physiologically and neurologically in our bodies. They would be able to digest food better. We'd be able to sleep better if we had more more effort and ease and balance. There are lots of other ways to think about balance. There's surrender and control. We're all feeling a little bit out of control right now. that things are happening around us that create a lot of uncertainty, and many of us are trying to find what is it that we can still control in life. And what I think is a more balanced position is, what can I surrender within what I'm trying to control? And can I bring a little bit of surrender into balance with that need to control? Another great example is thinking and feeling. Thinking in our heads. We're all up in our heads right now too. I think that's become a whole part of our culture, is to think about it, to analyze it, to get logical about it, to rationalize it. And what we do in the process is under our heart doesn't get to speak, and our heart is where our feelings come from, not just emotions. I'm not talking about emotions. I'm talking about also our ability to just smell the fresh air, to taste that juicy peach when you sink your teeth into it, and because we're off somewhere else with our heads. So coming back to a more heart-centered way of connecting to the world that brings us more into balance. And it's never about giving up the thinking for the feeling. It's about having both, and then being in relationship with one another. I mean, think about it, a seesaw. The person that's light is like way up here, and the one that's heavy is way down here. And how do you bring them, into balance? You both still stay on the seesaw, and you both want to enjoy and have the pleasure of doing this dance with one another till you can find that really sweet spot where you're in balance. And that's what I think of balance as being. How do we take both of these polarities, these things we think of as opposites, day and light, masculine and feminine? We all have a masculine aspect to our nature and a feminine aspect, and how do we play with that and find meaning in both of those aspects of ourselves, yin and yang, masculine, feminine, passive and assertive, and how do we do the dance? And that dance is what allows us the freedom to be ourselves. And within that freedom is health and well-being. Like I said, it's healthy to relinquish some of that need to control everything, because in that process of controlling is what's denying us the ability to sleep. It's what has our nervous system in overdrive. So if we can and bring that into balance with more spaciousness, where we can find our creative self, then we bring more health to our bodies. We can also think in terms of it, like you got a pain in your hip. Is it because you're sitting too much? So the balance becomes sitting and walking. It doesn't mean giving up sitting and walking all the time. It's like, where's the balance? Where's the sweet spot? And the sweet spot is the health and doing both.
I love the imagery you gave with the seesaw, because that's life, the the ups and the downs, and then trying to find that place, because that place is actually kind of fun and to be when you're playing with that balance.
Yes.
What are some of the personal practices that you have? Since you help so many people, what are your personal practices in finding your own balance?
Oh, what a great question. Is the first is noticing where the resistance is. What am I resisting? What's causing me this stress and struggle right now? And looking at it in terms of what's out of balance. What is there too much of and not enough of? And great example in writing my books was that, who's going to show up to write the book? Is it going to be the one who's like, okay, I have 2 hours to work now. This is my goal. This is what I'm going to accomplish. Or is it showing up with trusting that it's going to flow? Okay. Or is it a balance of both of those? Is there coming with a sense that this is going to come through me and I have to be open to allow it to come through me? And at the same time, the truth of the matter is I have 2 hours to do that. And this happens to be the 2 hours I have. So how is that goal orientation come into alignment with that openness to hear what it is that's coming through me, and putting that down in the form of words that have meaning. So that's one example that is very big for me. I mean, it can apply to any situation in which you're setting a goal. Who's showing up to accomplish that goal? Is it the one who's rushing through it with the effort, or is it the one that allows some ease there and some room for creativity and for spirit to flow through you, and for your own knowing and heart-centeredness to be able to speak as well as your brain? So that's a biggie for me.
And it's interesting because one of the things that I think about is how we show up. So you have that task, you have that moment. Are you going to stress yourself out to show up and you squash that creativity within you? Or are you going to say, I've allowed myself to have these 2 hours
Yes.
dedicated? And I really think that has a big impact on what the final product can be.
Exactly. Well, the truth of the product, just not how good it is, but how true it is. The truth is in that balance, and the truth is in trusting that I can choose who I'm going to be, too. I can choose to show up peaceful and open. I can choose to show up surrendering to the moment, whatever that is. That that's I think a key too, to understand that you are well-being, you are balance, you are capable of that. And for me, that's optimism, knowing that it's in my nature to show up this way. So all I have to do is choose it. I can't say, well, I can't choose it today. It's too busy. It's too crazy, which I do. I mean, because we're all, like, we don't all get it right all the time. And it's like, oh, I just can't get it done. But the truth of the matter is that if I show up, slow down, and become present, I can say, oh, what's out of balance here? What's the truth in this moment for me? Who can I be? I get to choose. So it's a lot about showing up and remembering and reminding oneself in the moment that, oh yeah, it doesn't have to be that way. I don't have to be out of balance. I don't have to be, like way down here on the ground on the seesaw, or way flailing up here in the air. That I can find the place, that sweet spot.
And I had never heard the term craniosacral therapist before. Can you describe that a little bit more?
Sure. Cranium, sacrum, down here, the end of the tailbone, the top of the nervous system, and the bottom of the nervous system, of the central nervous system. And a craniosacral therapist is first and foremost concerned with that. The spine is like a coat hanger. Everything is really associated with the spine and with the nervous system. And through my shamanic work, I was very, very curious about how if there's this energetic shift in the body, how does it move through the physical part of the body? And so I really wanted to learn more about that. And for me, that was craniosacral therapy. For me, it's where the energetic and the physical meet, and they meet in the nervous system. So we're these energetic beings and we're physical beings, and the balance between those two happens in the nervous system. It's a lot about holding parts of the body and inviting the body to return to its balanced position, its natural position. The body knows how to be healthy, and it's inviting the body to reestablish that health. It may be about holding the bones in the face, just touching them and with real presence, inviting them to move into alignment. We all know what it's like to have, TMJ, as an example, or jaw pain or headaches. And what if we could just invite the bones to just do a little shift back to where they are in balance, anywhere in the body. And this involves, sometimes there are parts of the body, and this was my specialty really, that have responded to a trauma and they've shut down, they've tightened up, energy has been shifted to another part of the body that's trying to recover. I would invite the body to begin to release the trauma. And so that energy could flow the way it's meant to. And what I would find is when these shifts happened for people, whether they were physical, emotional, psychic, energetic, that after a session, they would sit up. I could see in their eyes the change. And also, what they would describe is, I feel so peaceful and I feel so alive. And to me, that's the definition of health. That's the definition of well-being, is to feel peaceful and alive and ready to just, like life is full and here I am, I'm ready for it. And again, there's somewhat of a balance there too, that energy and that peace, coming together. Imagine the yin and yang symbol. That's it. And so that's really what craniosacral is about. It's about finding more peace and stability and balance in the body so that you can be more alive and more engaged in life.
That is absolutely incredible. I absolutely visualized the chakras and chakra balance, but chakra balance beyond just the energy, but physical body and how it really is connected to one another.
Right. It's really about addressing the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual, all in one. At least the way I practice it in my soul body medicine, soul wisdom. Oh my gosh, I got it all confused. This will be cut out.
Yes.
Soul medicine, body wisdom. So it's a matter of bringing all of those elements, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, into balance.
And if you had to give advice to someone looking to gain their balance in their own health, what advice would you give?
I would always start with what are the fundamentals of living upward. And they are showing up in the present moment, slowing down enough, inviting more ease into your life so that you can be in the present moment. Just breathe and notice that you're here in the moment. And it's there in the present moment that you can step back from the struggle, from whatever it is, however you're defining the struggle, but you can step back from it and be the observer of it. And then I always invite people to accept it, to just say yes to it. You're not saying yes to living this way forever. You're saying yes, that life is difficult in this moment. This is how I feel about it. And okay, I do. That's all right. I accept myself feeling what I feel. And then that opens you up to showing up differently. Like, okay, here's where I am. This is who I am. I'm right here, right now. What's out of balance? I mean, that's one way to start, by asking that question, what's out of balance? The other is, who do I want to be right now? As I go into solving this problem, am I going to go in as the peaceful person or the anxious, terrified person? And that I have access to that peaceful person. She's real. She's really inside of me, and I can bring her forward. And in the Living Upward work, we work on how to do that, how to rediscover that she's in there already. So it's about showing up in the present moment. It's about being an observer of the moment, accepting as it is, loving myself just as I am, and saying, I've got this. And knowing truly that I do, because I am designed to get this. I am designed for well-being, and I'm going to bring my well-being to this moment. That's what I would encourage people to do. And to use the resources and tools to learn to do that. That's what Living Upward is all about. Is we all want the same thing. We all want to live with more joy. We all want to live with more connection and more purpose. And we get stymied for lots of reasons. We've had experiences all through our lives that have brought us to this moment of, having our own ways of kind of protecting ourselves and dealing with how we have to manage this and manage that. And yet we have more tools than we know because we've gotten in these habits. And so we look at that. How do I change? What is it that I need to let go of in order to handle this too? Is always part of the process too. Like, what am I holding on to? Like I'm used to being in control. I'm used to being the manager and knowing the answers, right? Like, is there some part of that I can let go of in order for this situation to be resolved? So it's learning to question and let go, which takes a lot of courage, a lot of creativity too. A gift for you. My goal was to write a book, this book, After Rain, and to illustrate it with my artwork. Meeting this lofty goal required the inevitable planning, commitment, more commitment, and lots of disciplined effort. But these would be the key to my success, right? Actually, I knew that the true success of After Rain depended on much more. I had choices to make about who I would be, who would show up as this great endeavor unfolded. And when I was clear, deliberate, and aware that I was choosing who I would be, I was setting my intentions, the guiding forces and inspiration for all that I would create and do. Each day that I wrote this book, I intended to fill my effort with ease. I intended to be kind with myself as I committed my ideas to words. I intended to be heart-centered and ever conscious that this was a gift of gratitude to those who had touched my life. And as these words made their way onto paper, it was and is my wish that they shine with the intentions I chose. Some days my goals tried to overtake my intentions. Then I breathed and I remembered and knew that I could be faithful to both. With just the right amount of effort, space opened for ease. Planning became playful, and my heart guided my intellect towards its fullest and most loving expression. Who I am came into exquisite balance with what I do. And lo and behold, the gift I intended for you, I now place in your hands.